One of our native rocks in San Francisco is this chert. And what it is, radiolarian chert specifically. And what radiolaria are tiny single-celled animals, deep sea animals, that as they die, they sink into the ocean floor and build up layer after layer, and eventually they get thrust up and into rock. And so we have these at a lot of our hills. This wasn't thrust up here, it was put here. This was all once sand dune, and and it over time it was converted into soil and different plant communities. Behind you is a tree daisy, same thing. Daisies are usually low to the ground, but in this tropical forest and this cloud forest, they're high up in the trees. You guys have ginkgo trees? It's kind of an interesting leaf form. And again, it's native to China, and I just like to show it to people because it is so old. The oldest tree that we know of. Bunch grasses put down roots and spread them out, and they stabilize the soil, and they store carbon, and when they die back, the carbon goes back in the soil to nurture future grass crops and its neighbors and other flowering plants. Those of you who are out here, from here, have seen it. Seen buckeyes. They're just covered with pink blooms. Besides just being really pretty for us to look at, some of them are just coming into bloom now. And they put out, after the rain, they put out these tiny white flowers, which, they have kind of a waxy surface, so they hold the rain, they hold the pollen even in the rain, and then they're ready for wintertime pollinators like bumblebees and the tiny leaves. The tiny leaves, they're oriented so that they're protected from the sun, and they're small and tough, and so they don't lose moisture. The center is composed of lots of tiny flowers. The rays, these are drawing pollinators, but they get the nectar and the pollen from these central flowers. And these guys are totally different, but they're doing the same thing. There are lots of tiny flowers in the middle. And everybody's seen hummingbirds, right? Hummingbirds, dip their beaks into, they hover and dip their beaks into flowers. In South Africa, they have another, I sometimes bring a picture, I didn't this time. They have a different bird. It's called the sugar bird. And it too, it looks like a hummingbird. It's bigger, but it has that same long curved bill. It doesn't hover, but it grips these bracts. It's drawn to these bracts for the color, and it dips its bill into one of these flowers and picks up pollen, and just in the course of getting the nectar, as our hummingbirds do, and flies on and pollinates the next plant. Can you see why we call it the giant sequoia? What's giant? What do you see?
The width. The trunk.
Look at the girth, look at that. We saw this a little in the tropical forest. Same thing with redwood trees. The tannin is decomposing into its own soil, and a whole other community is growing. Redwood sorrel that we have here. We've got that. Ferns, sword ferns. Do you see sword ferns in any native redwood grove from here to northernmost California? And it's called that because of the tiny hilt at the base of it. It's just, this is a huckleberry. So a whole community is growing in this trunk. The roots mesh with the roots of other trees. And they all hold, that's why they're, one of the reasons they're so resilient. You know, they just, you know, because they all hold each other up. As a writer I used to know once put it, you know, they hold each other up like a family.